We continue now at the top of Daf Ayin Tesamad Aleph in Meseches Bava Kamma. This is Bava Kamma Daf 79a. The Brisa continues, Ganav v'hikdish, if a person steals the animal and he makes it hektish. Ganav v'hikif, if he steals the animal and he sells it on credit, but he doesn't receive money for it. Ganav v'hichlif, if he steals the animal and then he exchanges it for something else. Ganav v'nasan b'matan, if he steals the animal and gives it as a gift. Ganav upara b'chovo, if he steals the animal and uses it to pay a debt. Ganav upara b'hekefo, if he steals it and uses it to pay off something which he bought on credit that he still had to pay for. Ganav v'shilach sivlonos b'veis chamav, if he steals and then he takes the animal and sends it as a gift to his betrothed in the house of who's in the house of his father-in-law. Mishalim tashlumi arba v'chamish. In all of these cases, it's considered to be a sale, and he does pay 4 or 5 times the amount. And the Gemara says, "My kamash malon." What is this brisa teaching us? Ashma'inon reisha. So the first case of the brisa, which was on the previous amud, gana v'nasan la'acher v'tavach diyesh shliach ledvar avera. There, the case was that he steals and then he gives it to someone else who's a shliach. He appoints a shliach to shecht it for him, and we say he is responsible. He has to pay 4 or 5 times the amount. We're trying to teach that there is a shliach ledvar avera. Afagav de v'chol Torah kula ein shliach ledvar avera. Even though in general the rule is ein shliach ledvar avera. If you tell a shliach to do an avera for you, so it's the shliach's problem. It's not the person who sent. He's not responsible. But over here, yesh shliach lidvar aveira. Here we say there is a shliach lidvar aveira, and he appointed a shliach to do the tvicha, and that is still going to count against him, and he owes 4 or 5 times the amount. My time, what's the reason for that? Utvachu mecharo, because we compare the shrita, the slaughtering of the animal, to the selling of the animal. Ma mechiro de lo efshar de lav al yedei acher. Just like by selling it, it's impossible if there's not someone else involved that you're selling it to. Av tvicha, so when it comes to slaughtering, al yedei acher mechayev. If you appoint a shliach, someone else does it, the person is still going to be chayev. V'ashmin and seif, in the end of the Bryce is teaching, gonav v'hikdish, that let's say he steals and he makes it hektish, mali mechar lehedyot, mali mechar l'shamayim. What difference does it make if he sells it to a regular person? What difference does it make if he sells it to heaven? If he makes it hektish, that's also considered to be a sale, and again, he's responsible, he has to pay the dalid v'hei. Rashi explains, V'hekef machar ba'amona v'ashroi v'lo kibel dam. Again, he sold it on credit. He didn't receive any money. Ganav upara b'hekefo. Again, he stole and then he used it to pay off a credit that he owed. Shekifu chavero prakmati b'ashroi upara lo behemazu. He paid with this animal because he had bought something on credit he didn't yet pay. And we'll take a look at Tosfos as well. Ganav v'hikdish mishalim dalad v'hei. If he steals and makes something hektish, he does have to pay 4 or 5 times the amount. Kidem efarish mali mechar lehedyot mali mechar l'shamayim. As the Gemara explains, what difference does it make if he sells it to a regular person or lashamayim? And Tosfos point out, va'ayri b'kodshe bedek habayis. We're talking here when he's makdish it as bedek habayis, which means he's donating it, and the value of it is going to be used to improve the Beis HaMikdash, to repair the Beis HaMikdash. To lo shayach l'meimar. So there, when it's bedek habayis, you can't say what we said earlier. We said meikara deruven v'hashta tura deruven. We said that when you make a kodshe mizbeach, in other words, you make it some type of a carbon. So there, it might not really be a change of rishus, because originally it was called the axe of Ruvain, and now also it's called the axe of Ruvain. That's the carbon of Ruvain. That's by kodshe mizbeach, but we don't say that by kodshe bedek habayis. By kodshe bedek habayis, we do say that it's considered to be the same thing as mechar lehedyot, mali mechar lehedyot, mali mechar lashamayim. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Gonav b'reshus habaylim, if he steals the animal in the reshus of the owner, v'tavach u'machar chutz me'reshusam, and then he slaughters or sells it outside of their reshus, o shegonav chutz me'reshusam, where he steals it outside of their reshus, v'tavach u'machar b'reshusam, and slaughters or sells it in their reshus, o shegonav v'tavach u'machar chutz me'reshusam, where he does everything outside of their reshus, he steals it, he slaughters it, or sells it outside of their reshus. In all of these cases, mishalim tashlumi arba v'chamisha, he is going to pay the fine of 4 or 5 times the amount. But if he does everything in their reshus, steals, slaughters, or sells in their reshus, so pater, then he's going to be pater. He will not pay those fines. If he's pulling the animal and he's bringing it out and it dies, and it dies in the reshus of the owner, pater, he's pater. In that case, he hasn't yet stolen it. But if he lifts it up, or he pulls it out of the reshus of the owner, then he is a ganev, a mace, and it dies chayiv. He's going to be chayiv. And the Mishnah continues, Nasan lebechoros beno, if he's going to use the animal, he's going to give it over to the Kohen as payment for his firstborn son, for the redemption of his firstborn son. Or lebal chover, he's going to use it and give it to a creditor, somebody he owes money. Or l'shomer chinam l'shoel l'nosei sachar l'socher, he's going to give it to a shomer chinam, is a watchman who watches for free. Or a shoel, he's giving it to a borrower. Or nosei sachar, he's giving it to a paid watchman. Or a socher, he's giving it to a renter. And the point is, all of these individuals, they're pulling the animal because they're receiving it now from the ganev, and they're pulling pulling the animal and the animal dies, but Rishus HaBailim Potter. So again, if it dies in the Rishus of the owner, then the Ganav is Potter. But if they lift it up or they take it out of the Rishus of the Bailim, Vames, and then it dies, Chayiv, then it's considered to be a Geneva, and the Ganav is Chayiv. And Rashi explains, so again, the case is he stole it in the Rishus of the Bailim, but then he slaughtered it or sold it outside of the Rishus. The point is as follows. He only becomes a Ganav when he actually takes it out of the owner's Rishus, and then he acquires it. Or let's say he steals it outside of the Rishus, then he's made the kinyan immediately through Mashicha, because he's outside of the Rishus. Mashicha only works outside of the owner's Rishus. And then he becomes a Ganav. But if he does everything in the Rishus of the owner, Potter, then he's Potter. Why? The lo nasa olav ganav, because he doesn't have the status of a ganav in that case. He didn't make that kinyan. Hayaganav moshcho v'yotzei Potter miklum. Again, if the ganav is pulling it out and then it dies, so he's Potter, because again, he hasn't done anything in this case. And the Mesoras Hashas says, he's Potter specifically from the kefil, from that fine. Again, he's not a ganav in that case, because in that case he hasn't yet made the kinyan. But he gebio afila b'rishus bailim. But if the ganav lifts it up, even if he lifts it up in the rishus of the bailim, that actually is a kinyan. Sharei hagbo kone b'chol makom, because lifting it up is a kinyan anywhere, even in the rishus of the bailim. But Meseches Kiddushin, that we say in Meseches Kiddushin. Nasnu bailav lebechoros beno lekohen behei slime shel pidyon haben. Now the first explanation of Rashi, which Rashi will reject, is that the owner wants to give this animal as a payment for his firstborn son. That's the payment of the 5 slime of the redemption of his firstborn son. And we're not talking about a ganav. Again, when we explained the Mishnah, we were saying that the ganav is using this animal and giving it lebechoros beno. And that's the second explanation of Rashi. Lishna achrina nasnu ganav lebechoros beno. The ganav is using the animal to do the redemption of his firstborn son. V'nasnu lo sham b'makom shaganvu l'shom rachinam v'lashoel. And over there, he gives it again to in this area where he's stealing it. He gives it over to the shom rachinam, the shoel, etc. They're going to do the kinyan. They're going to do the kinyan on his behalf because he's giving it over to them. Hayamoshcho hakohen o balchov o hashomer. The point is, if the kohen is now pulling the animal, or the balchov is pulling the animal, or the shomer is pulling the animal, v'meis b'rishus bailim, and it dies in the rishus of the owner, pater haganav miklum. Again, the ganav is going to be pater in that case because there was no kinyan. V'loshan achrina ikar. And Rashi says the second explanation is correct, that we're talking about a ganav over here. We're not talking about the owner giving it over lebechoros beno to the kohen. We're talking about the ganav doing that. Hai chayev aganav koi. The idea is that the chayev is going on the ganav, and the point here is the mechayev ganav bekinyan shaluchav, that the ganav is chayev when these people that he's sending the shomer chinam, he's sending the shoel, etc. The ganav is now chayev with that kinyan that they make. The Ibenos no bailav, and Rashi notes, if we're talking here like the first explanation that was offered, which is that the owner is giving it to all these individuals, my chayev, so what's the chayev? Who's chayev over here? Nehida shoel matzi l'memer chayev b'onsen. Now by a shoel you could say he's chayev in onsen. That's true. A shoel is essentially chayev in everything. Elashar shomrim mi chayevi b'meisa kedarka, but other shomrim, are they chayev if it dies? V'yod l'gabe kohen u balchov, and also by the kohen and the balchov. My chayev u paterika. What are we talking about? Chayev and pater. What are they chayev or pater? Hifsid v'lo hifsid mi boile. It should be that there is a loss or there isn't a loss, but there's no idea of being chayev over there, and so that's why it seems we're talking about a ganav. And the Gemara says, Boy Ameimar asks the following question: Tiknu Mashicha b'shomrim olo. Is there a takana? Did they institute the concept of Mashicha of a kinyan when it comes to shomrim or not? Rashi says, Tiknu Mashicha b'shomrim shelo yischayev shomer b'shmira ad sheyimshoch. Meaning, is the shomer only chayev in watching the item when he does an actual kinyan, when he does a Mashicha? The other possibility is there is no takana of Mashicha, and instead, once the shomer accepts upon himself the shmira, he is responsible. So again, the question is there Mashicha by shomrim or not? And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yemar says, Tashma, come in here, a proof from our Mishnah. Nasnu lebechoros beno, lebal chovo, leshomer chinam, leshoel, lenosei sacher, lesocher. We're talking about cases where he gives it over to a shomer chinam, shoel, nosei sacher, and socher. These are shomrim. And it says, Hayamoshcho v'yotzei v'meis b'rishos ha'bailim pater. If the shomer is pulling it, and he's taking it out, and it dies in the rishos of the bailim, he's pater. So my love is in that shomer. We're talking about the shomer is doing the Mashicha. Ushma mina tiknu Mashicha b'shomer. And you see from our Mishnah that there is a concept of Mashicha by shomer. shomer, because apparently the shomer, in this case the ganav, is only responsible, because again the shomer is like a shliach of the ganav, there's only responsibility when a kinyan is actually made. And Rashi says, my lav is it not, hayamoshcho shomer, again the shomer is the one that's pulling the animal, umes, and then the animal dies, chayev ganav b'meshicha shomer, so the ganav is chayev through the meshicha of the shomer, and again you see there is a concept of meshicha by shomrim. And the Gemara says, Amar Lei said back to him, lo, no, ganav, it could be we're talking about the ganav. Rashi explains, lo ganav, no, we're talking about the ganav. V'hachi kamar means as follows, nasan balabayis lebechoros beno v'chula, the balabayis gave it over for the bechor, or to a shomer, etc. Uva ganav legonvo misham, and then the ganav is stealing it from the shomer, hayamoshcha v'yotze v'chula. Maybe that's what the Mishnah actually means, that the ganav himself is stealing it from the shomer. But the Gemara says that doesn't make sense. Hatana le reisha, it already says in the reisha this idea of a ganav stealing and he has to do a kinyan. Why would we teach that twice? And the Gemara says, Tana ganav shaganav mi beis habayla. Maybe the Mishnah is teaching a case of a ganav that steals from the original owner. But Tana ganav shaganav mi beis shomer, and then maybe the Mishnah is teaching us a case where the ganav steals from the house of the shomer. Amar le Ravashi says, lo tidchia, don't push off what we're saying with this response, because mali ganav shaganav mi beis shomer, mali ganav shaganav mi beis bailim. What difference would there be between a ganav who steals from the house of the shomer and a ganav who steals from the house of the original owner? There would be no difference. There's no reason to teach that twice. Elolav shomer, rather is not. We are talking about the shomer again, and the shomer is like the shliach of the ganav, as we said. Ushmami na tiknu mashicha b'shomer, and shmami na. We see from here that they did institute the concept of kinyan, the concept of a kinyan mashicha by shomrim, and the Gemara says indeed we see that is the case. Itmar nami, it was stated as well. Amar Belazar says, Kederach shetiknu mashicha b'lekuchos, just like they instituted mashicha by lekuchos, kach tiknu mashicha b'shomrim, so too they instituted mashicha by shomrim, by watchmen, meaning obviously someone who buys something needs to make a kinyan, so too that's true by a shomer. Tanya nami hachi, we have a brisa like this as well. Kederach shetiknu mashicha b'lekuchos, kach tiknu mashicha b'shomrim, just like they instituted mashicha by those who purchase items, so too there's a concept of mashicha by those who watch items. Uchashem sha'akarka niknas bekesef v'shtar v'chazaka, and just like land is acquired with money and with shtar and with chazaka, kach schira, so too rentals, niknas bekesef v'shtar v'chazaka. You can acquire a rental through money or through a shtar, through a document, or through chazaka, through taking possession. And the Gemara says, schiras tamai, what exactly is being rented over here that you're using kinyan kesef, shtar, or chazaka? Ilema, if you will say, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Ayin Tes Amud Beis.